This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sanders is 40, mine is 39, and we have similar ambition to progress in business and personal growth. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their early years. They often say they wish they had, and given we believe in learning lessons from others, we intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. Today, we'll discuss the classic saying, blood is thicker than water, expanding on its themes and the values of friends and family, why some prefer the company of one over the other, and much more. But first, we like to start each episode with a brief update of where we are at in our business and personal lives today, so that when we look back on these in the future, we can kind of gauge where we're at in the process. So what do you have for business this week?
Business this week, largely the same as last week.
Hell yeah. And the week before.
And the week before,
And last
before
month.
that. Yeah. So creating more creatives to test, analyzing them, figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I created a bunch of different tests that I want to run in the coming week in terms of different hooks and messaging angles and lengths and footage.
What works this week?
Um,
What did you like?
It was interesting because I tried some longer form stuff this week. And my frequency was a lot lower on the content, which tells me that Facebook is seeing it as a front end ad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was spending relatively well on it, and then it kind of tapered off. And I'm not sure why, because the metrics overall look really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm considering putting it in a separate campaign just to see for a few days, just to see how it does. But I tested that this week, and I'll be testing some slightly longer content for probably like the next week and a half, 2 weeks, just to see how it goes. But I also worked on some financial organization in terms of like financial records and what subscriptions am I paying for, how much, what money is going where, just to make my life a little bit easier when tax season comes next year.
Dude, what's the company that tells you how many subscriptions you have and then
Rocket Money?
Dude, their ads are fucking killer.
Yeah.
And they go up and they're like, I'll give you $100 if you tell me how many subscriptions you have, and they're always wrong.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a great advertising stuff.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
cool.
They've had a lot of good ads. They've been doing ads for a long time.
Yeah.
A few years.
Yeah. I haven't been in my personal finances lately. I'm now out of the red zone where it's like, okay, I can make rent for sure. Like a month ago, or 2 months ago, maybe I was like, January and February were tight. I was like, I don't know, man. But now since Grace's commission check has come in, I'm like, okay, it's fine. But this isn't, I forgot to write this down. It's one of my updates, but I'm gonna throw it in your segment because it's on topic. The $20,000 deduction that I did for work, I got my first paycheck with that deduction accounted for. I'm getting an extra $177 a paycheck.
Oh, wow.
So it's over $300 a month that is coming in extra now.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
it's really helpful. And I'm still gonna have, if my math is right, I kind of like eyeballed it. I should still have like an $800 refund at the end of the year. So it's not perfect, but it's a lot closer, and I'm getting way more money each month.
That's sick.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, congrats.
Thanks.
I also worked on some general notes and folder organization at the start of each month. I go through all the WhatsApp messages I've sent and questions I've asked and stuff like that. And I make a small list month to month of what I asked and what I learned. And I put them in lesson learned documents as well. So I was updating those this week since it's the start of April. And also going through some conversion rate optimization stuff, going through, what to add, what not to do, what to do, researching, stuff like that. So going to work on some of that stuff, as well as starting to research other products to add to the store. I don't think I'm going to be running ads for other products, at least in the near future, because I really want to hone in on what I have going right now.
Right.
But what I do want to do is upload some more products to the store and add them as upsell options in the checkout. So it's like if people buy the gramophone, then they can look at, like this other product that I have and be like, oh yeah, I want that too. I'll just add it to cart real quick, right?
Right.
So that allows me also to keep, I can keep that price a little bit more reasonable as well on the other products, keep it more enticing. And there's a few other things in terms of CRO, conversion rate optimization, that I want to work on in the coming week.
I just had an idea for a product that you could throw in at the end and be like, hey, get it for like, normally this, whatever, Binky is $10, but if you throw it in with the gramophone, it's only like 8 or whatever, right? Parents are freaking out about Binkies these days because as the baby sucks on it, it makes your face, it gives you like dick sucking lips or something. It like fucks your facial structure. It's like everyone in the past 10 years has sworn off pinkies because it's fucking up babies' faces. That's why everyone's ugly today.
Interesting.
But that's what happened to us. But you know how everyone right now is freaking out about the mewing thing? Like you can like mew or like chew the gum and like get the Giga Chad jaw. Dude, I wonder if you could make a binky that sold as if your baby chews on this binky, he's gonna have a Giga Chad jaw when he grows up. I bet people would pay for that.
I bet they would.
There are some
A vast majority of my customers are women.
there are some brain dead women out there, dude.
I don't know.
Brain dead parents. Of all the people I've met who are having kids these days, most of them, when I hear about it, I'm like, that's really? Okay. I didn't think you were in this position to do it, but like Godspeed, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of parents are like, dude, wouldn't it be cool if our kid had like a mohawk or like something weird, right? Those are the parents who would want like a Giga Chad kid.
I was going to, there's a backpack that has a little loop above it for head protection. And so if they fall backwards, their head doesn't hit the floor. So I was thinking about that.
It's a good idea too.
Yeah. Also a good idea.
Dude, I saw a racing cart with an F1 halo on it the other day and it looked fucking really weird.
Yeah.
It's like if you're in a cart, it comes straight up in front of you and then goes around your head. What's wild is it doesn't go above your head. It goes like a literal halo. Or not, I guess not like a halo.
It's like in your line of sight.
Well, it comes up in front of you like the halo in the F1 car, but instead of going around above your head, it goes around your head like at your forehead. So if you flip the cart, you're still gonna like I guess if you're not fully upside down, then you'll be okay. But I hadn't considered
That's
that.
strange.
It's weird. It's weird. If I find the photo, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, leave karting alone. It's supposed to be dangerous. It's supposed to be.
That's how I feel about racing. I feel like Formula One should be dangerous still.
Yeah. That's why I like the bike racing. That's fun to watch. You know, those guys are nuts.
What's weird is a lot of the bike racing that I've seen, not like Isle of Man, but like the tracks, when they crash, they go flying, but they've got the backpacks on and they all get up after their crashes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know when the last MotoGP death on like an actual track surface has been.
I don't know.
But
the guy who does those backpacks have a built-in
they keep your head off the ground, right?
Yes, but they also have a spine piece that will only bend in one direction. And the guy who designed that spine piece actually became paralyzed from a motorcycle racing incident because he hit a curb when he came off the bike and it hit his spine and he was paralyzed from the waist down. And so he developed that technologies for other riders. That's all pretty interesting. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they also revamped a lot of the curbing and stuff like that for tracks to make it safer. And
yeah. A lot of the MotoGP crashes I've seen recently, like just Instagram reels, have been like the crash looks bad. But once they dismount, they go flying and you're like, oh my God. And then they slide and you're like, I mean, they don't even have road rash or anything like that. They're probably bruised to shit, but like,
the bad accidents are when the bike kicks out from under you and you topple up.
Yeah.
Those are the bad ones because you have no control of how you land. Right. If the bike just goes out from under you and you slide, like usually those guys are fine.
Yeah.
But like if the bike loses traction and then it catches mid corner and it launches you up, those are the accidents people get hurt on.
Right.
But
still a little bit of danger. But that's what I love. Like the backpack thing doesn't inhibit anything. Like it's not a backpack, but like it's a safety it's like the Hans device kind of. That's how I see it. I see it as the Hans device. The problem with the halos is it impacts the airflow of the car and the visibility of the drivers and the visibility of us watching the drivers. And it kills
it feels less real too.
It feels less real. It just feels like cushy, you know?
Yeah.
Which like, yeah, I get it. People have died, but also like Gladiator.
I like the way IndyCar approached it with like a low profile visor.
I hate the windscreen.
I like it more than the halo.
It goes all the way up. It's like a full windshield. It's only open on
it's open on the top.
Yeah. But at that point, you know what? I'll say this. I like it because at that point, it doesn't feel like an open wheel race car to me anymore. Now it feels like something else entirely. The problem with the Halo is it feels like it's meant to be an open wheel, open cockpit race car, but it's not. It's pretending to be something that it isn't, is what it feels like.
I got you. Yeah.
I took the Halo off my Lego cars. That's all I'll say.
Fair enough.
I got the Ferrari and the Red Bull, and I recreated Have you seen the clip of Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso staring each other down at the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix?
Probably.
They're on the starting grid. They're very close on points going into the last race of the season. This is like the win it or lose it season. And Seb Vettel starts on, I think, pole, and Alonso's behind him. And there's this perfect camera shot. They're looking at Alonso, who's in second, looking forward and over into Sebastian Vettel's rearview mirror. And then it pans down from Alonso in the foreground, Seb Vettel, who's staring in his mirror at Fernando Alonso.
Damn.
Dude, it's so hard. It's so sick. I'll
That's-
pull it up after we record. It's so cool.
That's cool.
I recreated that in Lego.
Nice.
Tell me more about your business updates.
That's honestly about it,
All
to
right.
be honest. I mean, it's just kind of like the same stuff
Yeah,
from week
yeah.
to week for now.
I hear you.
But I only have like one personal update if you want me to just go through
Please.
it, and then you can
Yeah, please
jump
don't.
on.
Because I have a lot of business and a lot of life.
There you go. My only life update is at work. I got recommended for the parts and materials team by some higher up NASA people. So I might be shifting over to try and work on a dedicated team to solve the parts and materials issues that they've been having.
That's cool.
Instead of doing like my regular day-to-day stuff.
You even have a new T-shirt for the team, right?
I do, yeah. I made a
Or what
parts
is that?
tag T-shirt,
Yeah.
team shirt.
Would you be interested in that role, or would you hate it?
I think I'd like it more than what I'm doing now.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, it would be hands-on, like actually trying to solve the problem with people who can solve the problem.
Got
It
it.
would be like higher up now. So like Gursky, you may know Gursky, the name. He's deputy director at NASA.
Gotcha. I know
but, like,
Gretzky.
what?
I know Gretzky.
No.
Wayne
I don't-
Gretzky, the
Oh,
ice hockey player.
got it. Yeah, no. It would be with a lot of higher up NASA people.
Gotcha.
So
Well, that's cool.
yeah. I'd probably have to interact with your dad at some level.
He's a good guy to interact with.
Yeah.
It sounds like a better job position.
Yeah, it would be fun. So that's about it, though. I mean, I'm sure you'll go over the birthday party stuff that we went to and whatever. Paul's party and Tyler's
Oh, you're
party.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even.
Tyler had a
have that
birthday
written
party and
down.
Paul had a going away party.
Yeah.
Went to
Yeah.
those.
I'm sad to see Paul go. I liked him,
Yeah, he's cool.
but now he's gone.
Yeah,
And
gone forever.
Tyler's party was cool. But yeah, okay. Let me do my business update first
There you
because I have a lot this week.
Go for it.
Okay. So I started off my week by almost losing this client, right?
Mm.
And the reason we almost lost him is because he's ready to buy a house. But he's currently renting his dad's house from him and renting out the other rooms to cover his rent, right? He has been wanting to buy his dad's house for a long time, but his dad has never been ready to sell. Now that my client is looking to buy a house, now his dad is coming around, is like, okay, maybe I'll sell it, right? And if they can come to an agreement, then neither of them want a real estate agent. And so he, messaged me and Grace, and he was like, hey guys, I appreciate you sending me these listings, but if I can make an agreement with my dad, I don't need a real estate agent. And at the time, this was on Sunday, we were like, okay, just so you know, we're not upset with you. Communications remain open. We're not going to pressure you into anything or get pissy with you or anything like that. We're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you get in the right house. You should know that even if you go through with this with your dad, it would still benefit you to have an agent. It comes out of his paycheck, not yours. You don't have to pay for us because it comes out of the seller's commission, right? And if you want to be flexible on the percentage, we can do that. But we're here to make sure that you don't get scammed and you don't get a bad deal. And he was like, okay, I'll let you know. I don't know. He's going to get it appraised, right? So when an appraiser comes and appraises the house, let's say that this house appraises for 300,000, right?
Yeah.
The dad can still list it for 350,000, but you'll only be able to get a loan for 300.
Okay.
So you get the loan for 300, you put down your down payment, 10, 20%, whatever, or 3.5% for first-time home buyers, right? For 300, but you have to have an extra 50K laying around to put toward that, right? So I cautioned my client. I was like, hey man, if your dad wants to sell it for more than the appraisal is saying, you have to cover that difference. You have to have that cash on hand. You can't pull it out on a loan. It has to be cash ready to go. And he was like, well, I don't have that money, but I would hope that my dad wouldn't fuck me out of this. And I was like, I know, but your dad hasn't sold for a long time. He's been kind of sticky about the price. I just want you to have all your cards. Grace and I pulled a CMA, so a comparative market analysis. So we looked at the homes in the area and we were like, this is how much we think it's going to appraise for, just so you have that information ahead of time. Brace yourself. And he was like, yeah, I'm not even sure that my dad is going to have like a good price or whatever, and the inspection might not check out. So this I'm doing in addition to looking at the other houses with you guys. And I was like, awesome, we'll keep sending you houses then. We can keep going to showings. Ultimately, we want to be sure that you are in a place that you're happy. Whether if your dad's house is the best option and you're both dead set on having your real estate agents, that's okay. If it's someplace that we end up going to a showing and you really like it and put an offer down, that's cool too. Don't hesitate. we can keep doing showings for 6 months, and then you can cut us out of the deal after 6 months, and it's not a problem. We're not going to hold any grudges against you.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be really relaxed at that because he was tense. I work with this guy. So when we bumped into each other, I could tell he was tense because he was like, oh, fuck, like, I don't want to lead you on or anything. And I was like, dude, listen, we're here to make sure that you get what you want, nothing else, right?
Yeah.
It'd be cool to get paid, but otherwise. And so then I was able to roll into the sales pitch part of it, which was usually in real estate transactions, if you're selling your house, you want an agent to help market it and bring you offers. But if you're buying a house, you want a real estate agent as insurance to make sure that you don't buy a lemon, because they know everything about the documentary stamp taxes and what type of inspectors you should get and what should be credited to you at closing and things of that nature, right? They know how to deal with the title insurance and stuff like that. They know the lenders. So like
Yeah.
as a buyer, you want an agent to make sure that you don't get fucked. So just so you know, man, if you do buy your dad's house, your dad doesn't need an agent because it's already been marketed, but you might still want to consider one because, you know, that's insurance for you. And he seemed to come around on that. So that was my first experience, almost losing a client and then getting them back. And it was a
Cool.
really good experience. So hopefully we keep going forward together. But even if we don't, he's a good guy and I'm not going to hold it against him. So that's my first bullet point. Oh, and I used Alex Ramose's principle of if you get into business to solve problems, you'll make money. And if you get into business to make money, you'll have problems. So if I pushed him hard on like, no, man, like you need me, or like, you know, I'm like, I whatever, I don't know, just being more aggressive about it than if it, they have, Grace calls it, commission breath, which is like, I can smell from your breath that you're just hungry for the commission.
Yeah.
So, and I tried to not do that, and I think that was good.
Cool.
My tax refund got approved and is inbound, which is awesome because that means I'll finally have the money to buy rear tires because my left rear is leaking so fast I have to fill it up every other day because of the nail in the back, and I'm down past the wear bars. And it means that I can pay my National Association of Realtors fees so I can become an actual realtor and start working with a brokerage. So all of that is good. That's the reason that I haven't been with a brokerage yet, is I don't have that $1,700 to pay for it.
Got it.
I do have the money, but I would have to cash it out of an S&P 500 account, and it's been down lately, and I would rather get back up to where it was around election time before pulling money out, just so that I don't like have to pay tax on losses, you know. But okay, my big business update is that I didn't do any business this week, apart from that conversation at work, because there's a treasure hunt going on in the Rocky Mountains, and I am partaking. And I considered this last week because woman in the red dress, I fully admit it. I said it on air last time, and I knew it when I left. I was like, this is a woman in the red dress. It's a waste of time. But then I thought about it, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of women in red dresses. There's a lot of, I should go pursue this other business, or I should change my career path, or I should make some long-lasting, impacting decision, or I should blow my money at the strip club, which I'm doing on Friday, or like something, right? But most of those things are long-lasting ramifications and big, like they're big impacts, right? And they like those opportunities come up every other day, right? So like if I found a really cool clean Miata on Facebook Marketplace tomorrow, I could cash out that S&P 500 account and buy a Miata. But it's not a good idea. There will be more Miatas, right? And I thought about it and I was like, it's not every day people hide treasure in the Rocky Mountains and then write a book and a poem about it, directing you to the location.
That is true.
And the Christopher Hitchens quote, "In life we must choose our regrets," that quote hit my mind, and I was like, dude, I mentioned the shipwreck treasure last week, and I still think about it pretty frequently, about how bummed I am that we didn't actually go forward with it. And so like Sunday night or Monday this week, I was like, I don't want to have those same regrets about this treasure hunt. Even if someone finds it before I do next week and it's over, at least I spent that week engaging and trying, and you know, maybe it takes me on an adventure, and that is something that I can't give up on, right? And so this guy's name is Justin Posey, and he wrote a book called Beyond the Map's Edge. And it's all about his childhood and his life experiences growing up in the Rocky Mountains in the West, and talks about how he went on this treasure hunt that the Netflix docuseries is about. And he wasn't the one to find it, but he had a lot of fun adventuring looking for it. And so he bought the treasure at auction, added to it, and then re-hit it. So this treasure out there is multiple millions of dollars. And there's a Bitcoin, there's half a password to the Bitcoin wallet in there. And that Bitcoin reflects the book sales. So the more books that sell, the more money is in that Bitcoin wallet. So when
That's
you find the
interesting.
treasure, yeah, cool, right? Um, but this guy is super smart. He's a software engineer. He worked for Microsoft and Google and Internet Explorer in the early 2000s when they were like first starting. He's worked for Disney. Um, I don't know where he works today, but he's a very smart guy and very poetic. And in reading his book, I I related to him on a lot of different topics, probably in the way most people do when they read his book, because he's a pretty relatable guy. But specifically, a lot of his stuff was when he was a kid, he would get like hyper fixated and focused on like something obscure, like the chrysalis stage of a butterfly development, right? Or something like that. He'd learn all about that. And he would get like a little capsule, like a little memory from it or something, and then put it on his shelf and then move to the next thing. So his shelves are full of like all these eclectic little like reminders of the different adventures that he's been on. And growing up, I went through a lot of the same things. I had a lot of weird shit on my shelves and a lot of stories about like cool niche things that I learned about that I really loved,
Yeah.
right? Like I forget who. Oh, Ralph, Grace's sister's fiance. Um, I went out to their property before the last podcast, and they had a surveyor on the land, and he was like, "Oh, I saw a cottonmouth about behind the barn," and I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "There's no water out here," and he was like, "There's like a pond," and I was like, "I don't think that's enough for a cottonmouth," so I went back there and I found the snake. It was a black racer. And I came back up and I told Ralph, and he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You just went back there and found it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Can you show me?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I went back and I showed him. And he was like, "You sure that's a black racer?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I pulled up a photo on my phone and I showed him. He's like, "Oh, you're right." He's like, "Dude, where did you learn about this?" And so then I told him about all the like wetlands trips that I went on with Dutchie
Mhm.
to the Everglades and showed him all the snakes and the day gecko we caught and stuff like that. And he was like, "What the fuck? Like, I never would have guessed this about you." And it's because I don't really go out and I don't do the wildlife stuff anymore as often,
Right.
but I still miss it from time to time. But I related to Justin on that level. But then he started talking about his career because he works in software engineering, so he's coding all the time.
Mhm.
And he talked about how obsessed he gets with work, and he falls into the work to the point where he doesn't really think about like sleeping or eating, and all he does is work for like multiple days at a time.
Yeah.
And I related to that on the SAE and Kahuna stuff, and like whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm all in on, right?
Mhm.
And then he references the Forest Fen treasure hunt. And he was like, when I found that, it started off as like a minor interest and then turned into a full on obsession. And I did it for like 10 years. And
Wow.
I will not be doing this for 10 years. I've fucking committed to that. I will not be doing it for 10 years. But I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in the spirit that he would want me to do it. And I'm not going to work this week. And I'm just going to do treasure hunt. And I'm going to give myself to this obsession for a time and
Mhm.
enjoy it for what it is because it doesn't happen every day. But he has a quote in his book, which is he's trying to convince his brother to go look for treasure at Victoria Peak in the White Sands Missile Range because supposedly there's gold hidden in the caverns out
Um,
there, right? So he wants to go sneak onto a military missile range from like a bordering property that his neighbor owns, and he's trying to convince his brother to do it. And he says, "Just think of the regret we'd have if we didn't at least try. Goonies say never die." And I was like, dude, that's basically the in life we must choose our regrets thing. So I went into it. I'm fully sending into it. I read the whole book. Um, I figured out how to download it from the ebook version I have into a searchable format so I can like control F now, which I couldn't do prior.
mhm.
Um, and started taking notes. I started looking at maps and I'm like fully invested in it now. So this is what I'm doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have
So
fun. Let me know.
yeah, that's my business update. I am planning a trip out west probably in the next 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I think
You're
so.
going for it.
Yeah, genuine. I have strong suspicions about where it could be, but the problem is, so it's a poem, right? And if you follow the poem, it takes you to the exact location of the treasure. That's what he said.
Got it.
When you look at the last poem from Forrest Fenn's treasure hunt, um, looking on it with hindsight, it seems pretty clear. But I had the unique benefit of watching the Netflix series Cold Read. I didn't know anything about it. So I was following the wrong paths with the characters as they followed the wrong paths. And so now when I'm going into this treasure hunt, I know what I'm thinking might not be accurate, right? But what's beautiful about this is he's emphasizing it's not about finding the specific location with like coordinates or something like that. Read the book, get to know me as a person, and you'll find it because it's where my heart lies, right? Like it's the places that I love. And in the book
Yeah.
he talks about all the places that he loves. And so I'll tell you more about it off air if you're interested. I don't want to put it
Sure.
out on the internet for people to know. But I have a strong suspicion that it's in a specific location. I haven't bought a plane ticket yet because, firstly, I need to work out some logistics. I'm 24, so I can't rent a car in most places. I need to see if there's a
You can, I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was 25.
I feel like if you have someone over the age of 25,
Mhm.
it's either that you can rent it under 25 and you have to sign an additional disclosure, or if someone that's above 25 rents it on your behalf and then signs you as a like authorized user, then you
Right.
can get it that way. I think.
I'm not sure. In some states differ. Some states is
Okay.
21. I don't know about this state in particular. So I have to look into it. And then also I have to look at weather and lodging and stuff like that. I might just sleep in the car. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, but I have to look at those things. And then also I don't want to buy a ticket unless I have like a specific spot to go look and 2 backup spots just in case. Because these plane tickets, if I flew to this place next Friday, like I was looking at, it's a $700 plane ticket. $700 plane ticket plus the food and miscellaneous expenses. If we're looking at like $1,000, I can afford that. But I can't afford a lot of those. So I don't want to go unless I'm like pretty confident, right? So I'm going to narrow it down and then probably go, if not 2 weeks, then 3 weeks from now. So hopefully no one finds it before then. But that's what I'm doing this week. That's my
Cool.
business update.
Have fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. I like this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for my life update? That's my business update. Now my life update. I'm not sick anymore,
There you
which is
go.
fucking fantastic because I have not been to the gym in like a week and a half and I really miss it. So I'm going to go back tomorrow. I also shaved. I've been thinking about doing it for a while because it's just been annoying me. And I have this weird part in my mustache in the middle that I don't like. It's like an anti-Hitler stash. I couldn't grow a Hitler stash if I wanted one, right? Which is a shame. So Joel, I was talking about it to Joel yesterday because she shaved his cheeks. And I said he looked like he'd been working at the pier for 40 years, like helping people like bait their hooks and stuff. And he was like, I'm just going to shave it all off. I was like, dude, let's do it together tonight. He was like, wait, no, I was kidding. I was like, let's do it. And he was like, okay. So he did it.
Yeah, I haven't seen Joel yet.
Yeah. He looks very thin. He looks much thinner. The more he shaves off his face, the lighter he looks.
Yeah.
He hates it, but so just give him some support when you see him. Joel, you're looking great. My nomadic bag also came in.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm so excited about. Dude, I have been so excited since Grace said that she was going to buy this for me. I have a bone to pick with you because you let me go this long without owning one because this thing is fucking
I told you it was good.
sick. You didn't encourage me enough.
That's fair.
What's the thing? It had to be my idea. The horse thing. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink. That's the horse's idea. I'm the horse. Dude, this thing is fucking sick. I've been wanting a bag that stands straight up on its own for my entire life. I've never had one. I'm so excited to have this thing. The pockets are perfect. I could fit my gun in it. I don't have it there right now because we're on school campus. I promise. This thing slides back and forth. It's awesome, dude. It's perfect. It's perfect in every way. I'm so happy I have it. I didn't realize that it made the difference that it did until I got it. But now I can't believe I ever lived life without it. So I'm so happy to have
I
it.
use mine every day. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Dude, yeah, I'm stoked. So now I'm thinking, and you meant I was afraid to set it down on the ground because I didn't want it to get dirty or whatever. And then you were like, it's waterproof, so it's easy to clean. And I was like, well, that's a good point. And then you were like, it's got a lifetime warranty, so beat the shit out of it. I was like, that's a great point, T. So it's just all positives for the bag. I'm so excited to have it. And now I'm curious. I haven't gone to their site to look at the other stuff because everything's expensive.
Everything looks awesome on.
Now I'm excited. Now I'm curious, right?
Yeah.
But
you need a treasure hunt
if I have a
bag.
treasure hunt to go on, then I have to get
You have to get
gear
the
for
bag.
it. Something I have considered is where I'm going, there could be bears. There's bears all over the West, right?
That's true.
Several of the stories Justin writes about, there are bears. He was attacked by a badger in one of them. There's another one, I think, where there's like a bull moose. So I'm going to bring bear spray, but I would also like to have my gun. I don't own bear spray and I don't own a Pelican case to ship my gun in. So I would have to buy those things as well, which is another consideration because that's more money that I don't really want to spend. I have thought about driving it, but that's a long fucking drive. I'd have to go with someone else, and I don't know anyone who would go do this with me. And I don't want to.
I do not have availability.
Yeah. I'll tell you more off air.
Yeah.
I also got my desk finished. Last week I talked about how I was wire tucking everything, and then there was the iPad one that I couldn't figure out. Ultimately, I was like, this is more trouble than it's worth. I don't care. I have a treasure hunt to go on, so I just fucking smacked it together and made it work.
There you go.
Cleverly, the side that I have the wire hanging on, because it does hang down and you can see it from the front, but it's the side with the control panel for the height of the desk, so you can't actually see it from the front. You have to go to the side of the desk, and the only reason you'd be on the side of the desk is if you're going on the balcony, and by then I don't care, because you're not looking at the desk, right?
Yeah.
So I made it work,
Nice.
and I'm not spending money on a fucking stretchy elastic charging cord.
One time when I was young, I had a cord that I wanted, like the old phone cords that are like swanky style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one where I took a cord and I wrapped it around like a little tube,
Mhm.
and then I took like a low temp heat gun to it
Mhm.
and I heated it up. And then when
Cord.
yeah, and then when you pulled the tube out, it stayed like that.
That's
It
cool.
stayed swanky mode.
That's cool.
Yeah.
The one that I have has like you've seen my phone chargers. They've got like a cloth sheath on it or whatever. So I don't think that would work.
Yeah.
But in any case, I made it happen. So now my desk is entirely done. I also changed it such that the only plug to plug into the wall is to my battery pack, the big
Oh,
tower.
nice. Yeah.
Everything else plugs into it, including the standing desk. So if I lose power, my entire station does not change at all. I can still raise and lower the desk, everything. And I also figured out you can change the screen setting to show the watt percentage that it's pulling at any given time.
Mhm.
So now I can see I had it on something else. It was like always the same number, but now I have it set displays how much power it's actually using,
Yeah.
which is cool.
It has a little bar that moves too.
Yeah. I have it on the percent mode. So like
Mm.
when I'm charging my iPad, it's like 10% or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, I also have it figured out. All the wires are tucked perfectly behind, like within the confines of the width of the box. Even the big chunky ones I have laid out perfectly so that you can't see the cables coming out from behind the battery box from any
Oh,
angle apart
nice.
from the side of the desk. Yeah. So I'm super happy with it. And I have started to do some more work from home, and I have enjoyed working there because of that. And I figured out that if I raise the desk up to standing height, Simba can't get up there and leave his hair and cat litter everywhere, which
That
was
is
bothering
cool.
shit out of me. Dude, I wasn't working at my desk for like weeks because I would have to clean it every time I sat down. And I was like, I'm just gonna go to the bar. Fuck it. I don't care. But now he can't get up there. So I've caught him up there once. I don't know how he got up there, but I yelled at him. I also won trivia this week for the first time ever at
Yeah.
Pahana. Yeah, I've never won before. We got the $25 one this time. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. The question we won on, which it was, what is the most venomous fish? Do you know the answer?
A venomous fish.
Mhm.
I didn't even know there were venomous fish in
Mhm.
general.
Yeah. If they prick you with one of their spines, they can inject venom.
Oh, interesting.
So
My guess would be barracuda, but I have no clue.
barracuda are not venomous,
Okay.
but the popular one that people know about is lionfish, right?
Oh, yeah.
The answer is a stonefish. They're these ugly little fuckers that blend in with like the mud and rocks and stuff, and they've got a spine on their back. And when you step down on them, they'll put their spine up into your foot and inject venom. But I couldn't figure out if it was named a stonefish or a rockfish. This was the double bonus question where you wager points. Everyone else is talking about lionfish. I can hear them talking about it. I know they're going to get it wrong. I don't know if I'm going to get it wrong or not because I can't remember if it's stone or rock. But I went with stonefish. I went with my gut. We got the points. Rockfish is a type of sea grouper that I used to catch here. That's why I got it confused. I haven't been fishing in years.
Cool.
We also flamed the shit out of Kava Sutra on an Instagram post.
Oh, yeah.
And by we, I do mean the Vision 79 account. But they posted, just for future reference, Kava Sutra posted something that was like, hey, are you
Yeah.
sick of drinking Nocturne shitty tea? If you bring it here, we'll pour it out and give you.
Extremely degrading to the community and the bonding between people that they should be having, especially in a time where there's a lot of regulation going around and people are getting into petty fights about crap that doesn't matter when they really should be focused on creating community.
Yeah,
Thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's really fucked up. And I think
Yeah.
that Kava Sutra might be sweating because the ban isn't really a ban, it's regulation. So it's when you brew your kratom, you have to follow federal regulation and have it tested and approved to serve it.
Yeah.
Which if you applied the same things to like chicken, you would want that to be done because you don't want to be eating like GMO shit or whatever. I don't know. Like you want your food to be regulated.
Expired
right?
chicken.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? You want it to be regulated. But they're also clamping down on extracts and the strength of extracts that you could be selling because they don't want people to get addicted, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you put extract in your shells to get people addicted to your drinks, that inhibits you, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard people say that shit.
I've heard
Kava
rumors
Sutra.
that they I can't remember the name of the thing, but they add a under the counter medicinal like opioid like stimulant that
Hmm.
not kratom, but like something much stronger than that to their stingers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've heard that, your first shell is free when you go to Sutra.
Yeah.
I've heard they put stuff in that shell to make you want to buy another one and keep
I've
coming
heard
back.
that too. It's fucked up.
Just the first
That
shell.
company is so screwed up.
Yeah, I've heard that from their employees.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Probably the same one. But yeah.
Yeah. I
Same
mean, there's
with
been a lot that
Honest-
has spoken
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up. So everyone was flaming them on that Instagram post, and I did not hold back, dude. I went fucking nuts. I don't shit post usually. I don't feed into it. I don't fucking care. But the times that I do are times like this, and it
Yeah.
is so sweet. I had so much fun.
Yeah. I saw your personal account comments too.
Yeah, I went crazy. And then
Yeah.
I logged into Vision 79 and I left posts. And then I logged into Kahuna Cravings and I left posts. I said we came out of retirement just to flame this post, and everyone started going crazy on it. And then at Tyler's birthday party last night, Gage, who's a guest tender from Nocturne, was working last night. He came up to me and he looked at me and he was like, "Are you Mason?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "I need to meet you and shake your hand." I was like, "Okay, nice to meet you. What's your name?" And he was like, "Dude, you're our hero. We saw you post on the Kava Sutra Instagram." And I was like, "Thanks, man. Who's we?" And he was like, "Come here. I gotta meet you. I gotta introduce you to someone." So he introduced me to the social media manager for Nocturne.
Oh, cool.
And she was like, "Oh my God, you were saying everything that I wanted to say, but couldn't say because it's like, I have to be professional and maintain
Yeah.
my composure. And if you're the one getting personally attacked by Kava Sutra, it's best to save face and not like, stoop to their level." So she made the right call, but we're all feeling the same thing, which is fuck you, Kava Sutra.
Yeah.
And so we had a great conversation. It was awesome. But I wanted to put that in there.
Cool.
Just a public fuck you to Kava Sutra. Also, James found the N-word email where his name's Dylan. He's like the VP. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was
yeah.
like, "Oh, like I don't want to buy."
He's
this
the owner of
location."
Kava Sutra. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he dropped the N word in several times in an email, and
Yeah.
it blew up.
He was like, "I don't want to buy a property." He was like, You need to lower the rent or reduce the floor space of this place because it's in some like dirty and Haitian neighborhood or something like that."
Yeah,
Fucking
yeah,
disgusting.
it was a bad email.
But
Yeah.
James put that on his Instagram story, and they commented and they messaged him and they were like, "You're banned." And he was like, "Okay, I don't go anyways. Who fucking cares?" And I was like, "Oh, dude, the extent of their power is banning you. It's not like we go anyways. So who fucking
Right.
cares?"
They can't do anything. I mean, it's like,
They can't do anything.
yeah, what
Yeah.
are they gonna do? It's not a defamation because it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Well, even then, it's not defamation because it's like it's free speech, not defamation, right? It's like
But
I
there-
have
there-
nothing to gain
there,
from it.
there could be. You can still. The only context that you can sue for defamation is if you're spouting something untrue. Even if you do have free speech, if it's
Got it.
untrue and degrading, you could still be sued for defamation. Like if I were to go around and say, like, I don't know, Joey from Pauhana is racist and a sexist, and he says all these things, and he's a part of the Ku Klux Klan. Like if I say like crazy stuff like that, and I posted it all over, right? Not true, obviously. Then I could be sued for defamation because I'm even though I have the right to express my opinion and speak freely, I'm degrading someone else with false information.
So everyone doing the Hitler stuff about Trump and Elon is probably getting sued for defamation.
I mean, I don't know of any lawsuits that Trump is issuing towards other people or the Trump administration is.
Didn't he sue CNN or something for defamation?
Yeah. He sued some media organizations. That was a little bit ago.
Right. Was that for Hitler stuff?
I don't know if it was it. I don't remember exactly.
Got it.
I know that was probably covered under the umbrella that he sued under.
Got it.
So I think there was probably. I mean,
I
there's a number of things to sue CNN for in terms of the false information they've put out over the last 4-6 years.
But as far as defamation goes, I can imagine that calling someone Hitler is probably like the highest form of defamation you could do.
Yeah.
It's like saying that you're a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah. I don't know. I haven't kept up, but it's a good question.
I don't know. Speaking of brain dead idiots, the Space Coast crew board of directors interviewed for new coaches today, and my God, dude, I am at a loss. So there's a guy who applied in November.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was one of 3 people working the hiring process. So I made all the job advertisements, I made the job descriptions, I posted everything, and I was accepting applications from people and resumes and organizing and stuff like that, right? And at the time, this guy applied, and so I did a quick background check, and I was like, "Oh, this guy's an idiot, and I shouldn't even consider him because he's a brain dead moron with a bad reputation." So I just nixed him, right? Well, after a while, I was like, we're not really getting any great candidates. Our current coaches are doing a great job. So I recommended to the board, let's just keep our current coaches. Let's not worry about it. Let's just re-sign them, right? When we had to scramble to find coaches, when we had to fire the head coach in October, we were like, oh, I'd love to do a whole interview process and like get someone great or whatever. But I realized that the standards that I have for coaches are high enough such that when I scrambled to find coaches, I actually scrambled and found a really awesome team and they're doing a great job.
Cool.
So I was like, let's just keep him here, right? Well, the board was like, we should interview people anyway just to see what's out there. And I was like, all right, fine. Like, we'll waste some time, but who cares? Because we're going to come down to the same answer, which is we're going to keep the current staff because they're doing a good job, right? And we interviewed 3 people today. One of them is Elizabeth, who is currently doing a great job in the role that she is interviewing
Mhm.
for because she stepped up and held the interim position this year
Okay.
until we could interview someone for realsies and find it, right? She's doing a great job. Some of the parents have problems with her because their kids are slow, but I don't fucking care. And we interviewed this other guy who is from another country and has a really sketchy background. I can't find a full job history. On Reddit, I'm seeing people who are talking about him being like, this is the guy who I nixed in November.
Okay.
When the board started looking into, we should interview everybody, they found his application and then they were like, we should interview this guy. And at the time, I advised to them, I wrote them and I sent the Reddit article and his personal training website and his rowing videos on Instagram and stuff. And I sent them all this stuff and I was like, listen, this guy doesn't seem to be a good judge of character. He does not have a good resume. He does not have good reviews. He doesn't know how to row. You can see it in his videos. We shouldn't even bother interviewing this guy. And they were like, well, he doesn't have to know how to row to be a good leader. And I was like, no, but he has to know how to row to be a good coach. And we're interviewing for a coach. So,
Yeah.
and then this one lady responded and she was like, we're interviewing for a director of rowing. The director of rowing is going to be a head coach. So you have to know how to row,
Yeah.
right?
That's insane.
But I was like, fine, whatever. We'll interview him. It doesn't matter. It's going to go like shit. It's 45 minutes of my life I'll never get back. But whatever. At least I can be there for the laughs, right? So I call in today for the interviews. Elizabeth's goes great. She answers every question with detail. If she answers questions with detail, this guy's name is Misha. We interview Misha, and every single response is over 3 minutes. So long responses, big, long circle story that doesn't go anywhere. He just keeps like bullshitting around, right? Very high level stuff. And it's bullshit. Like some of the quotes I have from him are fucking wild. It's like, oh, like 12 to 14-year-olds shouldn't lift weights over their heads because they're still growing and they don't need that weight pushing down on them. What the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about? Are you fucking delusional? And some of the other stuff he was saying was fucking crazy. And he kept asking about the money. And I was like, it's whatever. It's fine. Like this guy shit the bed in the interview. We gave him the interview. We gave it the shot. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Interview the third candidate. She did a great job. But her time availability just isn't where it needs to be.
Okay.
Easy decision. We're going with Elizabeth, right? Get into a new call with everyone so that we can discuss the candidates that we just interviewed. And everyone's like, this guy really surprised me. I think he did a great job. And I was like, fucking what? Because, dude, every online guru you can think of right now who buy my course and I'll teach you how to make
Yeah.
7 different passive streams of income and you can retire in 3 years, right?
Yeah.
He's that guy, but for rowing, where he says that he's a world champion. I can't find any record of him winning a world championship. I have seen people talk about him coxing for Yugoslavia in a world championship in 1994 and 1995, but I have not been able to find record of him winning anything. Additionally, coxswains are very different than rowers.
Yes.
I mean this with all respect. I love Justin. Justin has done an exemplary job as a coxswain to learn about the sport of rowing, but Justin had less than half the experience that I had going into college, and he has a medal from like the highest level of national competition in the US that you can get, right?
Yeah.
Justin doesn't know enough about rowing, in my opinion, to get that, right? Because coxswains don't have the same understanding as rowers. But additionally, if you do have a good understanding, like Justin does, because Justin's not like most coxswains, Justin puts his extra foot forward, right? Similar to Elizabeth, who rowed before she coxed. This Miroslav guy has never rowed. He's only ever coxed. And it shows because in his erg footage that he posts online, he rows like ass. He does not know how to row. The difference is Justin doesn't go around touting his IRA medal. Justin goes around just talking about the sport of rowing. And in everything Misha posts, every other word out of his mouth is, I'm a world champion. right? And I haven't been able to verify that. He's also been fired from multiple teams. And he mentioned that today. He was like, oh, yeah, I was let go for other reasons, skimmed right past it, right? And I could not believe that these other board members did not see the shit that he was selling. And I spoke up and I was like, I cannot believe, like, I've never smelled bullshit from further away because he's calling in, I think, from the Northeast. And like, I can smell it from here. Like, he's trying to sell you something. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But the problem is, these parents don't understand that you have to know how to row to coach.
Yeah.
He
I
had
mean,
high
I
energy.
figured that would be intuitive,
You'd think, right?
but
But he's high energy. He's like, yeah, no, I think it'd be great. They were like, oh, well, Elizabeth didn't show the same, like, like vision for the future. Like when we asked her about specific things, she talked in like very minute detail. And this Misha guy was talking in like, broad strokes, and we really liked it. And I was like, wait, hang on. Anyone can talk in broad strokes, right? Here, I think it would be great if no one paid taxes, healthcare was free, and you only had to work 2 days a week. Elect me for president, right? It's when you ask, how are you actually going to get there? That answer matters, right? And those are the questions Elizabeth was answering. When they were asking questions about that stuff, she answered in actual actions,
yeah.
right? She operationalized it, and Nisha didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so I fought so hard. And Justin and one or two of the other parents were also like, I don't know about this guy. Justin was like, no way. Another one was like, no way. And then another one was like, I don't know. But like 3 or 4 of the people were like, I think he's great, worth pursuing. And so ultimately we decided we're going to call references to try to get other people's perspective of him. And if those check out, then we're going to have a second round of interviews with him and Elizabeth. But I'm just so fucking furious. I'm so furious that they're even considering this. And if they end up hiring him, then I'll probably quit the board, because I think every other coach is going to quit too. I think that if Elizabeth doesn't get this job, I think she leaves. And I think when she goes, everyone else goes too. And then the remaining board members, because I know half the board will quit as well, is going to have to deal with this bullshit.
Yeah.
And their kids graduate that year. So fucking, it is really pissing me off.
Yeah.
But I'm compartmentalizing, so I'm not going to think about that. I thought about it. I was like, should I try to find references to call and like help with that effort? And then I was like, you know what? I don't know, because I want to emphasize this treasure hunt. Have a good week. So maybe I'll just wait for the references to come in. We have a meeting on Thursday and we'll go from there. But yeah, man, I was fucking steaming out the ears right before driving over here because I'm pissed. That's my life update.
Fair enough.
That's my life update.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jump into the podcast.
We have a podcast topic today.
Yes, we do.
Today we're talking about friends versus family. So there's this quote that's really famous that goes, blood is thicker than water, which essentially means family comes first over friends always, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is in a vein of other very common phrases that I found in the past couple of years that has actually been shortened. And the full quote is, the blood of the coven is thicker than the water of the womb.
Yeah.
Which means the opposite. Friends come first over family. And that's really interesting to me because the full quote obviously came first, then someone shortened it and flipped the meaning. And it's interesting because I see a lot of people who hold the value one way or the value the other way. I think both values I think that both of these hold a lot of value to different people. And it's super interesting to me that some value stronger bonds with friends and some value stronger bonds with family. And I want to explore this idea and figure out why people tend to like one over the other. So our first segment is on the value of family. So we'll take it family, friends, and then the difference between them. So on the value of family, I have grown up hearing my mother tell my brother and I that friends come and go, but family is forever. And though I feel this quote is typically used to support someone in trying times, like if you're going through a breakup or losing a best friend, you say friends come and go, but family is forever. My mom would use it when my friendships were actually going really well. When they were at their peak, she would use it almost as a reminder to tell me that she would always be more important than whatever relationship I was building at the time. So if things were going really well, she would basically say like, hey, don't forget about me. Like, I'm still more important. Like, don't, and that actually put a sour taste in my mouth with this question in general, right?
Yeah.
So as a result, I've given a lot of thought to this over the years, but I'd like to know what your take is on family.
I think a family brings a lot of value. I think that at least in my eyes, family is super important, and I think that there's been a loss recently in terms of like the value of family, yes, but also like the structure and I think the structure of the family has faded, which has resulted in a loss of value for family.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I wrote here were, I got a lot of roots and values instilled in me by my family. Now, some of those I've, elected to morph over time into my own version. For example, I'm not going to uh, work for money for my entire life, right? That was something, but I got instilled the value of hard work, which is
Mhm.
something I've embraced, right? It's
Mhm.
just an example off the top of my head. I think family is really important for lessons. I think that when I was younger, I didn't take the lessons and thoughts that my parents or grandparents could give me. I didn't take them seriously, but now that I'm older, I kind of look to like my baba or my mom or whoever, someone older in my family for having insight about a given issue or problem or the way kind of people interact. Especially, I've taken from my mom and my baba have a really interesting and kind of broader perspective on like how people work together and the like different aspects of psychology.
Like what? Like how?
Just my mom's done a lot of research into like how people think and why, and digging in, and she's like really good at reading people as well.
Like psychology?
Yeah, that kind of thing. She doesn't have a degree in psychology, but
Yeah.
she's been interested in that stuff in the past, and she's always been a good reader of personality and stuff.
I know people with psychology degrees. Your mom might know more than them.
Yeah, that is a
The
very good
fucking
point.
the psychology education system is really weak.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah.
But when I was younger, I was like, "Oh, that's all like junk, that's stupid," or like whatever, or I just didn't take it seriously, or like her interpretation of a given character, like I took, but I didn't try to dig into it and embrace it.
Right.
And I at least I think I have more open ears to that knowledge that she passes down because she's lived a lot more life than me.
Right.
And so I appreciate that about family. I think that that bond is good, and I think that ultimately my parents are probably like the people that, or at least traditionally speaking, that your parents are probably the people that know you best
Mhm.
or have at least spent the most time with you,
Right.
for the most part, right? Outside of like if you come from a broken household or you don't know your parents,
A
right?
traditional
Obviously.
family,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Nuclear style family or synonymous.
An isentropic case.
Yes, there
There.
we go. But I think it's also important because the traditions and the legacy that come with your family and kind of the values they instill, all of that combined together, I think family is really important from an early age to have that block because when you're young, it's hard to like develop that level of a friendship with anyone. Like until you become an adult, it's hard to develop a friendship like that. And so I think from like 0 to like 18 or 20,
Mhm.
it's really important to have a foundational family structure that can teach you the different values and traditions that they have, just at least so you have a good reference point to start your journey from.
Right.
Because I think especially when you're young, when you're communing with different friends and stuff like that, like everyone's got a little bit of a different perspective and no one really has their footing. And so you're
Right.
kind of just all over the place. I think it's at least good, even if you start off on, per se the wrong foot or it's not like the perfect foot, at least you have a good stepping stone.
Right.
Um, and then I think ideally with a good family structure, you have a good safety net, you have accountability for your actions in terms of like lessons and some level of discipline, as well as family pushing you to challenge yourself and pursue your dreams and your aspirations, whilst also meeting the requirements of life, or when you're younger, maybe doing your homework, stuff like that.
Right.
And also, I think that family will keep you in check as you grow up,
Mhm.
right? It's kind of that root foundational principle that doesn't really change too much, and it's kind of always a good solid reference point to wherever you are in life to look back on where you came from, what roots you had, what traditions you have, and what your family's reflection of where you are, I think can be valuable. Maybe
Right.
you have a different perspective than they do or whatever, but at least that reflection point can prove to be valuable.
It's cool because your parents are a little bit further down the road than you,
Yep.
but you're a little bit further ahead of the road than you are from your younger sibling or your nephews or nieces,
Sure.
right? So you have a little bit more you can learn from older people, and then you can impart wisdom on younger people, so you get a little bit of, like, teaching and learning at the same
Yeah.
time, um, all within one small unit, like, or I guess some families are larger, but, like, a contained unit of people,
Yeah.
right? So I get that.
Yeah. What do you got to add?
Um, I think that it's kind of a spectrum. I think that a lot of people idealize the family structure in the same way that people idealize the American dream.
Mm,
Like, everyone has the same picture of, like, the nuclear family with the white picket fence, right? Barbecue for the neighborhood on Sunday and, like, family, like Dom Toretto's
Yeah.
ideology family, right? But I don't think that life works that way anymore.
Hmm.
Not everyone is like that. There's a huge range, right?
Yeah.
And I was watching Love on the Spectrum with Grace last weekend, and some of the people they have on that show have autism so severe that they can't really communicate themselves with words very effectively, and then other people are very eloquent, and they are you can very clearly see that they just don't have the same social cues that we do.
Mm.
But they're almost there, right? So you can really tell the whole spectrum, and then that humanizes those who are less vocal and can't express themselves as well, because it's like, oh, I know that you're feeling the same thing that I'm feeling, but you can't express it in the same way that I can, right? It's
Sure.
almost like you just speak a different language. And I think that families work on the same spectrum, where on one end you have the traditional family where everyone's very tight knit, and blood is kin, or whatever they say in Alabama, right? And then on the other side, you have the worst type of family where it's like, your dad left growing up and your mom has to work 3 jobs and isn't there for you. And your siblings are, you know, fucking not going anywhere, and they give you bad tendencies and they introduce you to the wrong crowd and
Mm.
stuff like that. And then in the middle, I think, is the average American family where it's like maybe you grew up middle class and your parents got divorced or something like that, right? Um, and so I think that you can get different values from each of them,
Yeah.
right? No matter where you are on the spectrum, I think that you can pull some value from any of them. But I think generally speaking, the same core points are there for every family that provides value. So there's some families that don't provide value, right? Like if you're born into a gang of riffraff and they want you to go live that life, you're not going to get any value from that, right? But the valuable families, I think, provide deep care for one another. So like the safety net, you can always fall
Mhm.
back on them, right? I think that they're generally compassionate and selfless, so they'll make sacrifices for other people in the clan, and treat them the way that they would want to be treated and things like that. And they're open and willing to let others be themselves. So if you've got the weird, crazy uncle who really likes trains, and then you've got the mom who really likes to cook, you let them fill their own roles and do their own thing, right?
Mhm.
Some of the less healthy families, I think that sometimes we see more often these days, they'll try to like impose their dreams onto other people. So a really common example that I've run into lately, where did I hear this from? It was something along the lines of like, the baseball coach of a little league team is just a dad who's trying to live out his dreams of being a famous baseball player through his kid.
Yeah, you saw it in racing all the time.
Yeah, but his
Yeah.
kid doesn't fucking care about baseball, right?
Yeah.
And that's not as healthy, right? Um, and the real issue with that is that there's Max Verstappens out there which do make it happen, right?
Yeah, that's
Dude,
true.
Max won in Japan this weekend,
Hmm.
which is huge because the Red Bull is the 4th fastest car this year by far, by a long shot.
Oh, got it.
The McLarens are probably like 5/10 a lap faster than everyone
Oh,
else,
wow.
half a second a lap, right? And Max put it on pole by less than 1/1000th of a second and got the track record, which is fucking incredible, right?
Wow.
It was a cold day. He got a great start, low tire degradation, and
Mhm.
he beat both the McLarens.
Wow.
Fucking phenomenal, right? Um, it's his first pole position since the middle of the season last year. His first win since Brazil last year. He might have one race after that. I can't remember. Um, Fucking monumental performance. Absolutely incredible, right? And his qualifying lap is on par with the 2023 Monaco qualifying lap, right?
Oh, yeah.
Fernando Alonso had been knocked out in Q2, and he was giving an interview while Max's last lap was going on. And Fernando stopped the interview to go watch the lap. And he came back smiling, and he was like, he's just the best there is. There's no one like him. We should all look up to him and try to learn to be more like him, because he clearly is capable of doing things that no one else in the world is able to do.
That's
Right.
wild.
And it's as a result of a non traditional, not healthy family, but it worked. Right.
Yeah.
But it makes you think, how many other kids out there grew up to not be Max Verstappen? How many kids didn't make it past Formula Renault and like just have a fucking like bitter hatred for their dad, or their dad has unfulfilled dreams through them and like it kind of fell apart?
Yeah, I mean, this kinda dives into, like, the argument of, like, I look at bullying through this lens sometimes,
Mhm.
where it's like, if you completely eliminate children picking on other children,
Right.
you make a lot of really weak children.
Yeah.
But if you allow too much of it, you also make a lot of really sad, depressed, and closed up adults in the
Yeah.
future. And so, like,
Or angry.
or angry
Yeah.
and uncontrolled. And so, like, where is the balance between making it hard enough so that the people who have tough skin will prevail to do something greater, but not making it so hard that the weaker folks in the community just shut down or become angry and,
Yeah.
do crazy shit, right?
It's interesting because, like, if a kid's doing weird shit in high school and you want to bully him for it, it's like it's odd because I put myself in the shoes of, like, if you had the opportunity to bully a weird high schooler tomorrow, would you? And it's like, no, I'm an adult. Like, of course I wouldn't do
Right.
that, right? But if I were in high school, I would. Like, I would bully people at I bullied Kava Sutra fucking upwards and backwards all weekend, right? And I would continue doing that. But it's like Kava Sutra kind of had it coming. Kava Sutra was being a bully, so you bully the bully, right?
Yeah.
And as an adult, if you want to wear cat ears in public, I'll laugh at you, but I'm not going to tell you to take them off, you know? But in high school, I totally, well, actually, I don't know if I would. I don't even know in high school if I would tell them to take them off. I don't think I would.
I don't think
I
I
wouldn't be
do that.
upset if someone did, though. If a bully came along and was like, "Take those off, you weirdo," then I probably wouldn't say anything. I'd probably be like, "Yeah, probably," because it's weird. But an interesting dilemma. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. There's like a balance somewhere.
Yeah, because it's like,
You know what's great about bullying? It lets you know where the social norms are. It's a
yeah,
great gauge. It's a great marker of whether or not you're weird. Because if there's no bullying at
but there
all,
are kids who just grow up in broken homes and they just become jerks,
jokes are
and
different. Yeah.
assholes in high school, and you know, man, I need some kids who are just like mean, like
Yeah, I
just
think.
like for no reason,
Well, the thing is,
But at the same time, like I saw value from that experience because it made my skin a little bit tougher.
I understand getting the thick skin. I don't understand bullying someone for something they can't control. Like, if
Yeah,
you're just a smaller kid, bullying that kid for being smaller is fucked up, and I'll beat
yeah,
up that bully as a grown-ass man. I'll kick a high schooler's ass if he's picking on someone for being smaller, right? But if you're picking on someone for wearing cat ears, then you're picking on someone for something they can control, which is the weird fucking fetishes they have and shit, right? Or
yeah. The weird ideals that
yeah, it's
they're
just a fedora kid.
growing up
You know
with.
what I mean? It's odd stuff. Like, don't do it in public, right? Do it at home and don't tell me about it. Like, I don't you're I can't help but go to class with you and I have to look at this shit and it's weird, right?
Yeah,
That I understand. Um, but it's like I almost want to say that it's better to get thick skin by getting made fun of for when you do something wrong. Like, if you do say dumb shit or you do something stupid and then you get picked on for it, that's
yeah.
where tough
It's a
skin
good
is
check.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But if you wear cat ears to class and no one says anything, and then you go to a job interview wearing cat ears, you do not have the thick skin already to know that you're not in the social norm,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think that's what's happened with a lot of like the really far left ideology that I see is like there are a lot of people that try to come at it with like good intention and loving the people around them and accepting, but it's gone so far astray from not necessarily loving who you are today, but loving the potential that you could be one day. Like that's where I think the focus should be. Like the potential you could be one day. You're here now and like you got some stuff you got to work through, but your potential is so great. Let me help you get there. Like that's the focus I think we should be on versus like a lot of like really wild ideology focuses on just accepting who you are today, but who you are today is like not the greatest and best version of yourself, and it's not even close. It could be not even close to a normal functioning version of yourself. You could be all messed up, but like that's why we have family and friends around to like support you and get you to a place, right? But there's like this acceptance where the path isn't even clear, you know what I mean? But
It's almost like course correction. Like, the bullying provides course correction from outside your family, but within your family, you have an opportunity to, like, just steer someone in the right direction and let them know where they stand. Like,
Mhm.
the benefit to bullying is saying, "Hey, man, you might not know this because you're really into this thing, but it's not appropriate to do it in public," right?
Yeah,
It's a rough version of saying that, right?
yeah,
Your family has the potential to do the same shit and keep you in line, right?
yeah. I think that like I think at least from my perspective, the ideal balance would be that you would kids would be kids and they would pick on each other for random shit.
Yeah,
And sometimes it would be warranted and sometimes it wouldn't because kids are just going to be kids.
that's true.
But family structure needs to be supportive, but also help you grow.
Yeah.
So you have like the life experience of like people are just saying shitty things sometimes,
Mhm.
but you go home to a supportive structure where it helps you grow from that and understand why this is happening. And so you have this balance. I think that's the ideal scenario, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the problem we have today is that the family structure is broken down. And so there is a lot of kids grow up in households that are not supportive or just, are
Also
worried about
shitty.
other things outside of, helping their kid develop into the best person they can be.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have this weird intermixing of like just allowing kids to be as they started for their entire lives. So if you got all these weird things, like I've read stories of like litter boxes being introduced into kindergarten classes because some kid thinks they're a cat. Like really weird shit, right? Like that's not
It's
okay.
weird.
You can't go to a 9 to 5 job and have a litter box next to your desk. That's insane,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like
They don't
there's
shit in the litter box in the classroom.
yes,
No
yes,
way. In the
yes,
classroom?
yes.
That's fun.
It's so messed up. And but
It's fucked up.
I think a lot of this acceptance train in younger kids has come from a result of the broken household because there was this like depression, anxiety epidemic, which I think largely stemmed from household being broken apart by various number of things. Tougher to raise a child, and especially this economy with inflation and all that stuff over the past 10, 20 years. There's been a change in focus in terms of what is valued in family, right? A lot of moms used to be stay-at-home moms to raise a kid, and now it's become A, harder to do that economically, but then B, there's been a large push for like the entire family to have jobs, so then the kid grows up kind of broken away from their family, potentially stuff like that, right? So you have a breakdown of the family, which results in a lot of and the bullying stays the same in schools. And so then what happens is that these kids develop anxiety and depression because of this. So then the schools come in and say, okay, we're getting a lot of depressed kids. Let's make it easier by eliminating the bullying, eliminating the hard stuff, and allowing kids to be whoever they want to be. Right.
Right.
And so you have a breakdown of the family structure that isn't in a position to be able to counter a potential bullying, incident or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Metaphorical bullying or literal bullying. And so then you have this acceptance train of just allowing kids the way they are because they don't have the family support structure, and it's like two different sides of the pendulum just racing to the bottom,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's kind of at least I've thought about this a lot before, like even months prior and years prior, just trying to figure out because I've always had a weird take on bullying where it was like, some kids bullied me through middle school and high school, but like I also come out of that today and see it as like overall valuable.
Right.
And so it's like this kind of weird discrepancy. I've spent a lot of time trying to think about it, and I think that's like the best way I can explain it, at least today. It's like it's a race to the bottom to like just get kids to like go through. But then you get like weird people who want a litter box next to their desk at their 9 to 5,
Right.
right? And like that's not functional. Like
There's
you
got to be
can't
a
do
line
that.
somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Well, and
there's
then
got to be a line of like normalcy.
I feel like there's so much interference. Like it's got to be confusing as shit to be a kid today because there's so much interference. And I feel like the
Oh yeah,
interference is people telling you like it's okay to XYZ. And like you've never even thought about XYZ. So it's not even
yeah.
on your radar.
That's a
And
really
them
good point
saying
too.
you can do this is like a door opening that you didn't even know was there.
Yes.
Whereas before it was like, I haven't even considered that. And it's probably not acceptable to do.
Why are 33% of kids in middle school coming out as LGBTQ? Right? That's a
Yeah.
hard conversation to have. That's a tough conversation. It's controversial, but
Right.
like the human genome has not changed in a generation to allow
Right.
a over tenfold increase in
Yeah.
that, right? And so you start to see some of that, and that's a tough conversation. But maybe a slightly easier conversation would be like depression and anxiety, right?
Mhm.
When my parents were growing up, like if a kid was depressed or sad, like the family structure was there in order to support them and help them, right?
Right.
Now the schools are raising the kids.
Right.
And so now these like I got, I actually talked to my mom and had myself taken out of the depression and anxiety class because I felt like it was making me more depressed and
You
anxious.
had a depression and anxiety class?
Yeah, we had depression and anxiety class. We had like a variety of
Dude,
different
please
stuff.
sit down with Grace and tell her the shit. Cause I tell her about the
Yes.
fucking whack liberal schools from Mass that you grew up with, and she was like,
They're way more whack than
dude,
when I went.
she's like,
It-
I haven't heard about any of this. And I was like, talk to Sander, cause like
Yeah.
fucking firsthand, like depression and anxiety class is fucking wild.
Yeah.
I went to like an accepting no bullying school, and we didn't even have that shit.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy, dude.
It's and it's like that kind of stuff. Like I almost felt like in that class, it was like they talked about like stuff like self-harm, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't
You haven't even thought about self-harm yet.
right. Exactly. I
No,
hadn't
it's
even
okay to
thought
self-harm.
about self-harm,
Right.
but now, since they're telling me kids who are sad perform self-harm because it thinks they help them, they help themselves by doing it, and then they go on to say, well, it doesn't help, you should seek a counselor, blah, 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 right? But the idea in a small, fragile 14-year-old mind like mine, it instills the idea that if other people are performing self-harm in order to help their sadness and their problems, then maybe I can perform self-harm to solve my problems, right?
Right.
I didn't go down that path, but what I do know several people who did.
Right.
And it's like, I think close to 50% of the friends that I had, and I had a relatively large friend group, close to 50% of the friends that I had went through some phase of self-harm and depression.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not normal.
Mhm.
And I can't help but think that the constant discussion around that could be potentially leading to that sort of outcome, right?
Yeah.
And then I listened to I can't remember her name for the life of me, but there was a really great psychologist who went on Joe Rogan not too long ago, maybe like 6 months ago, and she talked about how the actual talking about your problems continuously actually embed them into your psychology.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily work to actually improve your situation. It just creates this structure in your mind that like this is the problem I live with and I can't do anything about it.
Right.
And like that's a very controversial structure because like, people are like, well, like therapy helps and stuff like that. I'm like, yes, therapy for some people can work really well.
But that's
Especially
progression.
for male minds, I've heard that it's
Yeah.
very challenging. Like men don't talk through their problems a lot in the same way that women do because we just have a different structure of dealing with those things by and large. Sometimes it can be helpful, sometimes it can hurt, right?
Right.
But it's important to have that acknowledgement because if you're just going to have the schools raise your kids, which is essentially what a lot of what's happening now, like you have these broad sweeping ideals coming from adults who have the ability to comprehend the difference between self-harm and help,
Right.
right? But then you have 12, 14-year-old minds that can't understand that. Right? They don't have the grasp on it. And so they take it at face value and they see it as a solution to the problem. And I think that's part of the reason why we've had such a depression anxiety epidemic and like all of these vast changes in the structure and upbringing and like general mental cohesiveness of adolescents today, right? Like their minds are so fragmented from this stuff. And
Right.
it's like there's such a discrepancy between the adults making all these policies and the kids who are actually having to sit through these classes, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a big breakdown. I think it's again resulted from the breakdown of the family has resulted in the schools needing to be able to address this, and there's a race to the bottom, right? Of like what's the minimum standard that we can give, and like the absolute like easiest time we can give because the family isn't there to support the kid, so the schools have to be there. But then as the family weakens and weakens, the schools have to get weaker and weaker too in terms of their addressing these problems. And so then you get this massive acceptance wave where like kids don't understand how to grow anymore. They just understand how to accept the like 8-year-old version of themselves or the
Yeah.
12-year-old version of themselves. Like I am very happy I am not 12 years old today in my mind. Like I am
Yeah.
very thankful that I was able to grow and mature.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think that's just a personal experience for me. I think that there is inherent value in that. And I want every kid growing up to be able to experience that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Well, the problem with being told to love who you are before you know who you are yet is you don't know who you are yet. Like
Yeah.
you haven't lived enough life to become someone.
Yeah.
At fucking 8 years old, you're nobody. Like you don't know enough. You haven't experienced enough to be someone yet. Your brain isn't developed, right?
Yeah.
So you can't start loving yourself and accepting yourself that or like the problem with loving and accepting yourself is the recognition that you don't have to grow anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem at every stage, right? Like
Yes.
even today at this age, if someone was like, "Do you love and accept yourself?" I'd be like, "No, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about?" Like, I don't hate myself. That's good enough, right?
Yeah.
But I also don't think I'm perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I think this actually
love and accept yourself. Everyone has intrusive thoughts. If you told me to love and accept myself, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so all the intrusive thoughts I have of driving off the causeway or into oncoming traffic or murdering people, that's me. That's who I am, right?" It's not like you can't then recognize, "Oh no, these are intrusive thoughts. Everybody has them. You shouldn't listen to them. It's just your imagination." Right? It's just your brain thinking about like, hey, there's the fucking whack crazy parallel universe where like, you do crazy shit. The only difference between you here sitting here today and a school shooter is that they actually went in and did it, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck is in their head that makes them actually do that, right? They love and accept themselves and they actually do the shit that they think
Yeah,
about,
and they're
right?
weak in their thinking.
Right.
It's not strong this is also another dilemma that we could talk about in another podcast, but it's not strong masculine men that go shoot up schools.
Yeah.
It is weak, uncontrolled individuals who have no direction and are off the rails. It is weak
Right.
people who cannot control their minds and emotions. Those are the people. It's not masculine, strong men who are strong in themselves and want to create a better society for tomorrow. Those are not the people shooting up schools. I can
Yeah.
guarantee you.
Well, and some of those kids were subject to bullying that they shouldn't have been. Like
Yes.
way too much
Yes,
bullying.
but there wasn't
right?
family structure in order to help them get
Right.
through that, and so then there was this acceptance train from the school, and so then they
Right.
let these intrusive thoughts get into their mind, and then they go do crazy shit.
Yeah. And so then it's like, well, how much interference should you have from the school? Right.
Yeah.
Because like you can't reach into someone's family lives and impact that, but you can impact the school. Like as a government official, you can impact the school.
Yeah.
But it's also like you go to school to learn and like you get an education. You don't go to school to learn values and stuff like that, right? Like you don't learn how to conduct yourself.
Yeah, that should come from the family,
Right. It
you know?
should.
It should, it
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting divergence on the conversation, but
Yeah.
relevant.
The
Relevant
last point I have on the value of family is a it's an interesting one. It's one on unconditional love. I feel that a lot of people who value family very much believe in the theory of unconditional love. And I think that's the critical difference between friends and family. And we'll get into that in segment 3. But I wanted to bring it up now because I think that a crucial part of the value of family in the traditional sense is that you know that they're always going to be there for you. You're always going to be there for them no matter what. And that comes a cropper, that becomes a problem when your family members do shit that you don't agree with, right? Like
Yeah.
Jeffrey
Tough.
Dahmer's dad, how the fuck do you think he felt, right? Because he held traditional values and he had unconditional love, but your son's a serial killer. He ate people. Like,
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do with that, right? So I personally do not believe in unconditional love. And so I personally don't believe that there's a difference between friends and family because I don't believe in unconditional love, but we'll get into that
Interesting.
later. I just wanted to plant the seed now because I do think that unconditional love is like a mother's love is supposed to be unconditional for her child.
Yeah,
Right?
I wanna plant one more thing too on
Yeah.
on this topic is, I hear a lot. This is specifically relevant to me because I'm a Christian and I believe in the Christian faith, right? And there's been I want to mention this because there's been this instilled like idea from a lot of people that like Christianity just loves you the way you are. And part of the thing I really love about going to church and being a part of Christianity is that it loves you for who you could become and who you could grow into. God loves you for the potential that you can become. He loves you, but he doesn't accept you today, right? He loves you and he cares about you and he wants to help you grow, right? And that's part of like is it's been misconstrued, but like that's part of the ideal that I feel like we should have more of in family structure.
Yeah.
Is like I love you and I care about you, but you got to fix this. Right.
Yeah.
And like that's part of the value that I like coming out just from the Christian church side of things. And that I really appreciate. And like when I learned about that perspective, I was like, oh, that's actually like very aligned with my current perspective. And I'm like, I felt like I was outside of the box in that thinking for a while.
Right.
And then I started hearing about it from that end and talking to other people and also thinking through it from myself. And I was like, okay, like this actually makes a lot of sense. And started thinking through these problems and issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention that because it's an interesting parallel. I feel like, at least in my personal experience, a lot of the faith experience I've had at church really resembles a strong family structure that I
Right.
wish more families had, regardless of whether you're religious or not. Just better structure and caring about the future and growth of collective family together.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been a breakdown.
It's like the pursuit of becoming a better person.
Yeah.
There's an Alex Hormozy quote, which is something like, become friends with people who don't love and accept you for who you are today, but understand that you're going to grow.
Mhm.
And then maybe you grow in a different direction. Right.
100%.
But that's what I have for segment 1.
That is also all I got.
All right. Segment 2 talks about the value of friendship. And friendship, I feel, for me, is the most sacred form of relationship that someone can have. And I think that's because there's no external lines tethering either party together. So there's an unsaid external pressure to uphold family relationships because you're blood. Romantic relationships are pressured into continuing because of true love and the external pressure of marital expectations, say if you're married. Professional relationships are pressured into functioning because each party is bound together by circumstance and working toward the same goal as either coworkers or like student-teacher relationships. Friendship suffers no external pressures. Friendship is structured from within the relationship entirely.
Yeah.
Ending a friendship has far fewer repercussions than ending a family, or romantic, or professional relationship. And that means it's easier to come and go, per se,
Hmm.
which means friendships are built entirely on genuine connections.
Yeah.
What values do you find in friendship?
I think so. I tie this in towards the end as well, but I think that really good friendships can reflect a very good family structure as well.
Mhm.
But it has that aspect to it, and I think there's a pro and con to the tie, right? I think that when you have a family structure that you, let's say, don't connect with, because there's that blood tie, and you have that motivation to stay connected, right? That underlying motivation, it pushes you through challenges that you may have not pushed through otherwise if you were just friends with like your dad or whatever,
Right.
right? So I think that friendships are really powerful because they are just the mutual exchange of value between two people and their mutual decision to go, hey, like I value you in my life, you value me in my life, right?
Right.
Let's grow together or let's pursue this thing together, right?
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, family is by default, friends are by design,
Right.
right? And I think that ideally, really good friends do a lot of what the good family structure can do as well, right?
Mhm.
There's obviously differences in terms of like you have much more underlying motivation to stay connected with your family because of the things that you mentioned rather than just like a friend or whatever,
Right.
right? But ideally, good friends would motivate you, challenge you, inspire you, support you, and help you grow. And those friends also may change with time, right? And so it's that consistent mutual and exchange of value, right? And so friends definitely have a great place in everyone's lives, and I hope everyone at least has one good friend. But um, that's it. Friends have been really good, but I'm very glad that I've had the underlying connection in my family too, because I see the value in having that forced tie. Because there is arguments that I've had where I've just, if I was just friends with them, maybe I would have just said screw it.
Right.
But because of that underlying motivation, I was, pushed to talk through it and work it out. And I feel like I came out stronger from that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there's give and take on either side. They're different, but they can act in very similar ways, but there's different things tying you to them.
Yeah, I think it's healthy to have both. Like an ideal scenario, you have both
Yeah.
friends and family, right? I feel like friendship is generally seen as entirely voluntary and kind of fleeting, which is a shame because that's not really how I see it.
Yeah.
But
Me neither.
I think it's also like a spectrum, similar to how we talked about families. You have like general acquaintances where you say like, "Oh, I recognize that guy, and we've spoken a few times." And then you have friends, which is like we speak regularly and we get along well. And then you have best friends, where you spend dedicated time together frequently and make sacrifices for one another, right?
Yes.
And each of those stages has its own benefits, right? Um, and I think that a good friendship um, is one that's chosen and not forced by circumstance. And I feel that familial relationships, romantic relationships, and professional relationships are forced by circumstance. You can still build successful relationships based on that, right? Even
Yeah.
with that, but you are confined to a box where it's like there is external pressures to make it work, right?
Yeah.
Whereas friendship is completely free and configurable. So you can raise and lower your bar of acceptability to change the group of people that you hang out with. And that's really awesome because you can grow with people or you can grow past people. And people can come and go depending on where you're at in life, right? So it's like, as you move down your path, maybe you meet someone who is where you're headed and you're friends for a while, but they don't really grow. So you pass them and move on to the next, right? And so you can kind of configure the people that are around you in your life to match where you're at perfectly. Whereas with one of the more tethered relationships, you are forced to be at their level, whether that's above or below you,
Mhm.
right? If they're above you, you have to reach to reach up them to where you want to grow into or
Yeah.
forward, but in a different direction. Or they're stuck in the past or stuck in their ways, and you have to kind of reach down to talk to them, right?
Yeah. The thing I love about the tie and being stuck to the family side of things is that my family does know me probably better than anyone else because I've spent the most time with them. Like they know my character and my little tweaks and stuff like that. And
Right.
they also genetically understand how I think because I came from them,
Mhm.
right? And so there is some similarity in that sense. So I love it for the fact that like I can go off and grow and change and evolve, but the instilled values and the life lessons are held down by my family. And so like there's a constant reflection
Mhm.
there. And even if you choose to stray away from that reflection, having that reflection is important.
Mhm.
Right. And with friends, with friends that just kind of come and go, which I don't agree with that concept of friends either. I think it's weak.
Right.
But with a lot of people's friendships as they mature and they grow, they kind of just get new friends and then get new friends and get new friends. And I get that, but the mirror becomes tinted in a different light every time,
Mhm.
right? And so it's nice to have a very consistent mirror in the back where you can be like, okay, let me reflect on like, you know, moment zero of
Right.
my life, right?
So it's a point of reference.
Yes,
Right.
exactly, right? And so you can always see where you are relative to your point of reference and understand. And I think that's valuable for self-reflection,
Yeah.
because I think it's easy. You and I think have a perspective on friendship where it can be very, very similar to family, if not family to you, right?
Right.
And so I think that some people don't have that perspective and they get led astray and they go down the wrong path and they just constantly seek different friends to validate their position,
Right.
right? And so, I think that's a lot of the time why people go down bad paths and become drug dealers or, rob banks or stuff like that is because they trip once and they kind of just trip into a new group and then they kind of just continue down that path because they have the availability to find friends who validate their position in that moment because there are other people doing that same thing.
Right.
And so they kind of just and then it's important once you become the bank robber, I think it's especially valuable to have the family reflection behind you, right? Once
Right.
that goes away, now you're just a subject of the state and whatever you're going to get caught. And
Right.
it's very hard to build that self-reflection. It's not impossible, but it's very challenging to build that self-reflection back to your roots and understand where you came from and why when you've never really had that and then you kind of just dodge between people and find people that reflect your lifestyle.
Right.
I think that's part of the reason why so many people who go to prison end up back in prison.
Yeah.
Is because they don't have that stronghold or potentially don't have that stronghold back with family. They grow up in broken homes and then they just find new people that kind of just validate whatever they're going through,
Mhm.
you know?
I think the reason that friendship can be more like family for us is because whereas friendship in the way that I have it defined has no external pressure, it only has internal tethers,
Mm,
but those internal tethers for me are very strong. It's more so a sense of duty and a sense of commitment to an investment, which is I see the potential that this person can be, and so even if they're not growing right now, I know that they have the potential to and they could, right?
yeah.
So like I won't be in a relationship with someone who I don't think will become a better person than who they are now, right? Or similar with a friendship, I wouldn't become friends with someone who I think is not interested in growing because that's not really what I'm here for, right?
Yeah.
So I would let go of a friendship if I didn't think they were going in the right direction. But the friendships that I do feel are going in a similar direction, the tether is all internal. It's my own internal drive and duty to maintain that relationship, right? Um, there's one other thing that I had too that I can't remember. Oh, the familial thing, the reflection. I have a different experience with my family, and I think it's because in recent conversations I've had with my dad, um, we've talked about like I'll mention like life lessons that I learned from him, right? So like I
Mhm.
mentioned in a podcast that I treat my janitor at work with the same respect that I treat my boss's
Mm.
boss, right? And he and I were talking, and he heard that podcast, and he was like, "I didn't know that you remembered that. That's that touches me because that's really important to me, and I'm happy to see that it's important to you, right?" And he didn't know that until he heard the podcast about me talking about it, right? And there's tons of those things, right? Like the story about him crashing the plane when he and his father was teaching him how to land the plane.
Oh yeah.
Didn't tell him about the landing gear was down, whatever, right? Like those things, he doesn't recognize what little bits I carry with me until we talk about it like this. So if I were to if I were to pose a question to you and my dad and say, "Hey, I'm being faced with this scenario. What action am I going to take?" I think you can probably more accurately predict what I'm going to do than my dad will. And it's simply because though my dad was with me throughout my entire life growing up, he spent significantly less time with me from college on. So like
Yeah.
you have a recency bias of having spent more time with me. So you have a
Sure.
more accurate depiction of who I am today than who I am as a whole, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But if I was if I was, let's say, a bad friend, I may not be able to give you the point of reflection in order to, like, yay or nay whatever decision you're trying to make, right? Like,
Absolutely.
if I was a worse friend, like, I may not have a good mirror to hold up to you and be like, "Hey, man, like, maybe don't do that." Versus, like, your family is that consistent mirror. Like, even if your dad is wrong about whatever path, the prediction of whatever path you're gonna go down, he will give you a consistent mirror and a consistent reference point. And I think that I appreciate about family.
I see what you're saying. You're saying that family largely stays the same and doesn't grow very much.
I think usually by the time you're in your 20s, your parents are probably somewhere in their 40s or 50s ish,
Mhm.
right? And so at that point, I think a lot of people, most people who are in their 40s or 50s have gone through life for, a decent amount of time and have some concrete values that they've established through the past 50 years. And so I think that
Right.
although family dynamics can change and you, like your mom or dad or whoever can change, it is I think that the time that you grow up with them stays as a steady reflection point that they reflect back on you. Like my mom will always see me as like the 16-year-old race car kid,
Mhm.
right? And so and she'll always see me for like my roots and where I grew up from. So even if she changes, she has that reflection point because she spent so much time with me.
Mhm.
And so when she talks to me, she uses that reflection point as like an anchor point. And I think that that anchor point can also be useful for me.
Interesting. Interesting. I see it differently because if my mom frequently will say like, "Oh, well, you used to like X, Y, or Z," or "I remember when you da 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 da," right? But I'm so different now that it's like, okay, well, maybe I used to, but that's not who I am anymore. And like I hold different perspectives now, right?
Mm,
So it's nice to see how far I've come, like how far I've changed. Um, it's also kind of sad because she doesn't recognize where I'm at anymore. And she hasn't grown, so she's in the same space, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I see what you're saying, where they'll constantly
Like, my mom will always see me as that young kid and always see, like, the initial spirit that I had when I was a kid.
right,
And so, like, for me to be able to have that as a backboard, as a self-reflection point of, like, who I am today versus, like,
who you used to be.
who I used to be and who I grew up as.
Mhm.
Like, that reflection point, it can be valuable to inform how I've grown, but can also be valuable for me to see where I've maybe gone astray,
I see what you're saying.
right? And so I appreciate that perspective that family brings.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Now I understand that
Yeah.
reference.
It was, tough for me to compile it together, but
No,
hopefully it
I
makes
think
sense
I think
now.
that was well said at the end there.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Now I understand. And now I agree. Yeah. I agree with those same values. And that can be helpful if you use it correctly. And it can also hold you back if you don't, right? Like
Mhm.
if you personally hold the I accept myself for who I am thing, then every time you look back at that reflection point in your parents, you're going to say the same 16-year-old kid forever. You'll never
Yeah,
change, right?
yeah.
Um, but it's also good because if you do have discussions with your parents and you recognize that you're exactly the same person as you used to be, you can use that in its own way as saying that you've been led astray in the sense that you haven't grown at all. So you can recognize in talking to your parents, "Oh, I'm the same kid that I was when I was 6, right? Am I authentic or am I not growing?"
Yeah, yeah. It's, and I think it really depends on the family too. Like, I have very different conversations between, like, my mom versus my dad.
Mhm.
Like, my mom, I'll tell her about, like, some business stuff I'm working on, and she'll be like, "That's wonderful," and she'll tell me about, like, the AI stuff she's working on, right, and give me that, and then, like, that's really cool to me too. But then she'll also call me out when I seem to be acting out of character.
Right.
Versus, like, the conversations with my dad, I feel awkward talking about business stuff because I feel like there's, like, a layer of judgment rather than, like, an attempt to bond over a reflection of character.
Mhm.
Like I was talking with my grandparents earlier. It was my grandmother's birthday today and my dad's birthday today.
Mhm.
And so I called them
Your baba or your dad's mom?
my dad's mom.
Got it.
My dad's
Oh,
birthday and my dad's
interesting.
mom's birthday. Yeah, same day.
Huh,
Yeah.
cool.
And so I called them and it was like it was just strange because they're it's hard for me to explain. I haven't thought about it enough to explain because this conversation was like 2.5 hours ago.
Yeah.
But there's there's a there's a different connection that I have.
Mhm.
It feels like it just doesn't feel like when I have a conversation sometimes with like my dad or my grandma on my dad's side, it feels as though I'm informationally informing them about my life versus more times when I have a conversation with my mom, I'm informing her about my character.
Mm.
And so I get that reflection point too. Just as just like a personal side tangent anecdote at
Sure,
this
yeah.
point, I guess. But it's interesting to see that like my mom loves what I'm pursuing regardless. And like even if I have like consistently throughout my life, like even with different opinions and all that, like it's always been her reflection has always come from a point of I'm looking at your character and I see a misalignment or alignment.
Mhm.
Versus with my dad's side, it's been more of I see your path as different from mine analytically, not character wise, but material wise.
Right.
And so there's more emphasis put on this material change in path rather than like trying to understand the character change in path. And so I appreciate the character change in path a lot more because the material stuff is like whatever. Like I want to know how I've grown as a person, not how I've grown in terms of like a bank account number, right? Like that's not the point, right? But it's just, I guess this is, yeah, just a personal anecdote, self reflection. But the family can act in very different ways. But I appreciate the ties that bring me back to family because I can see that backboard as reflective. I guess my kind of spiel, I know I'm going off. I guess my kind of spiel would be that I appreciate the character backboard that my mom has for me, and I wish that more kids had that character backboard because I feel like kids would grow into more stronger, self-reflecting adults.
Yeah, I think if you reverse those roles like 180, you get the similar situation that I'm in, where when I call my dad, it's more like, you know, um, it's more along the lines of like, are you happy with where you are, and what is motivating you to do it? Where with my mom, it's more so. I feel like when I give her updates, it's like almost questioning. It's almost like, well, why do that? But or what if you did something else, right? Um, I kind of feel like it doesn't come from a point of sometimes they both come from a point of not understanding, but one comes from a perspective of wanting to understand, and the other comes from the perspective of like just questioning in general,
Hmm.
right? Like with the IRS stuff, with the 401k or whatever. When I explained to my dad why I canceled my 401k because I don't believe in the system, he was like, "That's an interesting perspective. I hadn't considered that before. I didn't know you dedicated this kind of thought to it. That's cool."
Yep.
And my mom, on the flip side, kind of freaked out and she was like, "Well, that's not the safe bet and like you shouldn't do that and whatever." And it's because, well, she wouldn't do that. And so then she's trying to, kind of impose what she would do onto me instead of trying to
Mm.
understand why I wouldn't want to do it. Like it's questioning almost like to try to get me to understand her perspective instead of just laying flat her perspective and asking me why I'm doing it differently, you
Yeah.
know? But
Yeah.
it's the same type of thing with me, where one is very surface level and like what's going on, like what's your LinkedIn profile, basically? What's your LinkedIn profile and bank statement look like? And
Mm.
then with the other one, it's like, what are you interested in and what is the type of person that you're trying to become and can I relate to you on that, right?
Yeah.
Like the number of times I can count that my dad said, it's just like the thing at work from this week. Like he relates to me, like that's his standard way of like when we're talking. That's what he does every day. That's his
Yeah.
whole life is basically, at work and the interactions that he has with the people who work for him and the people he works for.
Yeah.
And so he draws parallels and comparisons a lot, which shows that he understands what I'm saying and can relate to it. But with my mom, a lot of it is like, okay, all right. Well, it sounds like, just surface level type stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what I have for friendship.
Yeah. I think we can push to
Okay,
um the last segment.
got it. The last one is just on which is right for you. And this particular segment is fascinating to me because some people feel such a strong connection to their family that nothing could tear them apart, while others differ from their families at such a core level that it's a shock they're even related in the first place. I'm wondering if there's a pattern between how people make friends and how strong their familial ties are. If someone grows up with fewer family bonds, do they turn to stronger friendship or do they isolate themselves? What are your thoughts?
I think I think it can really depend on the person. I think that some people who grow up in weak family dynamics will just jump to any friendship that they can get a hold of,
Mhm.
and they don't have the self-reflection or foresight to understand whether it's strong or weak.
Right.
And then there are some people who genuinely seek specific things out of a friendship and want to build something like a family structure with their friends. Um, you know, for me, I'm very appreciative of the ties I have to my family. Um, and I also understand a great value in friends as
Right.
well. So for me, generally speaking, I think it can be tough for, or it can differ from person to person, and it can be tough to figure out where you sit. But I'd say that uh, rushing into friendships, or if you see yourself jumping from friendship to friendship, or you're rushing to find something, you're usually not going to find something of quality.
Right.
You got to be able to, if you come from a weak family dynamic, you have to be patient in finding good people to surround yourself with. If
Right.
you just jump for something that's close, it's probably not going to work well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, Availability does not mean quality.
Yeah,
You
exactly,
know.
right? It's that's related to my dial-in quote, so I'll save it for then.
Oh, cool.
But the people I know who have large families usually tend to have strong familial ties, and then people who have smaller families, it's either you're really tight or not at all, like basically non-existent. I don't meet many people with like a large family who don't have strong familial ties, and
Mm.
those people, like, what comes to mind is my ex, Elizabeth, who had a big family and strong family ties and a large group of friends, right? Um, it just like loves interpersonal relationships and connections and can have multiple deep level like relationships with people at a single time, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then I can also think of someone else who didn't have a very big family and only has like a few close friends, right? Um, there's not many people I know who have good family ties and don't have a ton of friends apart from myself. And it's because I set the expectations, like I set my standards high enough for friends that I don't have very many of them,
Mhm.
right? But I do still have solid family ties. But I don't recognize many people in the same situation.
Yeah, the question of which is right for you, I think is I think it's challenging. I think that first, working on self-growth and self-understanding, and really having a good point of reflection. If that has to be within yourself, then so be it. But just like genuine critical analytical thought about who you are today and why, and then start from there. And if you feel as though you can grow with your family in that sense, and have them as kind of your rock, then so be it. If you feel as though you can't have that connection and you have to seek it through friends, then be very mindful and aware of who you make friends with, because I would say there are many fewer people, friends out there, or potential friends out there, who are really going to push you to grow and self-analyze, than there are friends who are just going to want to chill and play video games and have a superficial life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's if you want a deep connection with friends or a friend, like, it takes time, and it's largely a waiting game and a self-development game too, because as you self-develop, you will meet more people in a similar headspace to you.
It's like a romantic relationship, but without the external pressure. It's a
Yeah.
chosen relationship, um, but it takes time to build a quality one, right?
Yeah.
I think that for me, friendship rules supreme over family just because of the selective nature. Like, I can choose healthy relationships that promote growth for both parties and remove relationships that don't, regardless of the classification, right? So, generally speaking, I try not to look at it as friend or family or relationship or professional or whatever. It's just, does this person make me a better person? Do they make me think from different perspectives? And do I do the same for them? And so interestingly, I've recently learned to apply this with families because I realized that growing up, you grow up with your mom and dad. But then as you get into high school and college and you start to become an adult, you stop viewing, or I stopped viewing my parents as mom and dad, and more so started viewing them as the individual people that they are. Like, you start to learn the intricacies of themselves because you can compare your actions to them more, right?
Yeah.
So when you're 10 years old, it's difficult to understand why your parents making the decision in the career path that they're choosing. But as an adult, when you're faced with those same decisions, you can relate to it a little more, right? So you can't relate to everything because I'm not in my 50s, but you start to get to recognize them as individual people, right? And then based on that, you can start to say, well, okay, this is family, but our relationship doesn't really serve either of us. So I don't need to invest as much in this relationship. or I get huge benefit from talking to this person and I think that they do as well, and this is something that I want to continue to foster, right? Um, so I kind of take the label out of it. And
Yeah.
in terms of which is right for me, it's the it's the selective quality of friendship, but it's not labeled as friendship. It's just labeled as like relationship, I guess, for me, right? Um, so my classification of friend and family is helpful, but not really a rule set in stone. Um, I try to only choose relationships that serve us. Yeah, I think that's what I have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to look at it from a value perspective
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I think that the key is recognizing what relationships don't serve you or which ones you're maintaining by not being yourself. So like there's this quote that I almost chose for my dial in, which is it's actually a quote from myself, but it's something like honesty will strengthen relationships that are meant to last and unravel those that don't serve you, or something along those
Yeah.
lines, right? Um and
Agreed.
essentially it's just like, it's if it's not benefiting either of you, then why are you here? Right? And if the answer is, well, we're here because we're related or because we're married or because we work together, then start to consider why that's important to you, right?
Yeah.
That's how I consider it.
I would agree.
Yeah. And that makes me wonder how many people out there have relationships that they really like it doesn't serve them to be in them, but they're investing their time in it anyways, right? A lot of relationships are that
Yeah.
way, I feel. I was in that myself. I was wondering toward the end of the relationship when it came time to end the relationship. Um, I struggled with it because it's all that I knew. But when I thought about it, I was like, well, this relationship isn't really benefiting either of us at this point. So why are we in it? And the answer was because at the time, it was because of unconditional love. And that's when I started to question my belief in unconditional love because I really don't believe in it. And I think that's the key distinction between what most people see as friends or family, which is, friendship doesn't have unconditional love and family does. All the other attributes are the same. You're there for each other, you grow together, you support each other, you make sacrifices. Both of those can be the same in friends and family. The only difference is family is forever and friends come and go, and that I can quantify as unconditional love, which I have begun I not begun, I have learned to not believe in anymore. And so it's easier for me to blur the lines between friends and family and then just kind of say, pick what suits you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the unconditional love thing, especially in friendships, I think that at least for me personally, outside of family, everything is conditional.
Yeah, it's even conditional within family for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there may be a threshold
I think it's 'cause
where it
people
becomes
change.
conditionally, but I'm not sure. Like I feel like I'd always have unconditional love for like my mom or Bob or whatever, you know?
I mean, yes, if they don't change. But I think if they did change, like, if you read the news one day and your mom was in prison for defrauding a bunch of old people and they found that she was the leader of like a child sex ring, right? And you went and you visited your mom at prison and
My poor mom, she's
you were
not.
you're like, "Mom, I didn't know that you were doing this stuff. Like, why?" And she's like, "Dude, I just love to watch people suffer." Like, that probably changed your perspective of her, right? And at that point, you would love the woman who she used to be, your mom, but not the woman who she is today.
I don't know. I feel like I'd want her to do better. Like I'd still care and I'd still want her. I'd want her to come out of whatever bad situation she was in. Like I'd still
But
very much
not a
love her.
situation. I'm saying in this situation, this is the person who they are. Like, this
Yeah.
is what they value now is like bringing other people
I
together.
I think
Like
I'd
Jeffrey
still
Dahmer.
work to them to try and fix that
Wow. I don't have
with
that.
family. I think I would.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Even if they change entirely.
And I think even with friends and relationships,
Mm.
there is a certain extent that I would as well. But it does have a certain condition put on it to where it's like, and it's not a perfect equation, but it's like if I continue to put in effort, I have to weigh the amount of effort I put in versus the amount of effort the person I'm trying to help is putting in as well. And
Right.
how long I let that imbalance go on before I just cut ties.
Right.
Right.
Well, at a certain point, if they aren't putting in any effort, then that's just the person who they are now, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, this is a great example. Is that towards the end of that relationship, I realized, okay, this woman is just becoming someone who I didn't fall in love with 7 years ago. She's just someone different now, and I'm becoming someone different now, right? And it doesn't mean that I hate that person. It just means that I don't love them because they aren't who they used to be, and I'm not who I used to be, right? And so there's a great saying about getting back together with your ex, which is you don't love them, you love the memory of them, right? It's
Mm,
you love the old times and who they used to be, but that's not who they are anymore, right?
yeah.
So like if I started touting like super racist shit and started going on like genuine Kanye rampages and stuff and started wearing the hood and everything like that and started, like, acting like that, you could try to talk me out of it, but if I was like, "Listen, man, I'm onto something here, right? And you don't understand, these aren't people." Like, at a certain point, you lose that, right? Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
lose me as a person because I'm just so different at that point, right?
Mm,
Like, I think at a certain point, I believe in growing and evolving, and I think you can grow out of things. So, like, if someone's made a mistake, like, someone important to me, struggled with alcohol addiction for a while, right? And they were able to beat that, and they came out of that. And that's a character trait, not a character entirely, right?
mm,
Like, that's not a belief, that's a physical addiction that they had,
yeah.
and then they were able to beat it. So I think you can overcome that. And, like, if you have intrusive thoughts, maybe you act on some of them, maybe you self-harm, right? I think that you can come out of that. But if your fundamental motivation as a person changes, I think there's a line that I draw there where it's like, "Oh, you're not the person who I used to connect with, and you are not interested in becoming that person again." So I think I have to cut ties here.
I think it really depends for me. I think there are like
I hope you never face that with the people who you would do it with.
it's
I hope
very,
your mom
very
never runs
no.
sex.
My mom will never do that. My mom is a wonderful little angel back
I
home.
hope not. I hope not.
Um, but yeah, it is a interesting dilemma.
Yeah.
But
It's an interesting thought case because I hadn't considered it until I was in the hot seat, and I was like, "Fuck, this is a hard decision to make because I didn't
yeah,
realize at the time, like, I think a sense of duty is such an interesting podcast topic in itself because it, duty is essentially doing something compulsively because you said you would, regardless of whether or not it's worth it, right?
could you repeat it one more time?
Like a person's sense of duty, right?
Hmm.
Like I felt a sense of duty and responsibility to continue that relationship because, because I said I would, because
Yeah,
I said that I, would love her forever and I would never break up and et cetera, right? But if it doesn't serve you, either of you, then why continue? And so it was difficult for me to break that duty,
yeah,
but it's just a curious concept to me, a sense of
yeah.
duty and responsibility.
There probably could be value in going in either direction, but you can't live two different lives.
Right. And then it's how much effort do I put in if they're not putting in any effort
Right.
as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is that all you got?
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
all I got.
Sounds good. I have 2 dial-in quotes today because I just couldn't pick one.
There you go.
My first one I alluded to earlier. It's a Hormozy quote. If you have low standards for friends, you will have many. If you have high standards for friends, you will have few. And I referenced that earlier because that's what I try to attribute um, in my life. And I think that it's Grace recently has been kind of bummed out because she doesn't have like a best friend. Like I have
Mm.
you, but you and Grace aren't best friends, and Grace isn't best friends with anybody,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah.
So she doesn't have like a best friend. And
Yeah.
she was kind of bummed about that. I was like, well, I'll always be your best friend. She was like, I know, but it's different, right? And it is different. Because there's things that like girly things that she wants to do that I couldn't give a fuck about, won't go do, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to go shopping. I don't care, right? And she wants someone to go do those things with. And I was like, listen, you have high standards for friends. Like you could be friends with half the girls at the gym or most of the girls at the bar or fucking any one of your coworkers, whatever, right? But you just like you just won't settle for someone who isn't exactly what you're looking for, and I don't think that's a problem, right? So, generally speaking, I take it like, I don't have many friends. Well, okay, I guess by my definition, general acquaintance, friends, and then best friends. I have lots of friends. I have lots of people who I speak to semi-regularly. I enjoy their company, whatever,
Yeah.
right? I have very few best friends, right? Um, and so I was trying to share this with Grace and essentially say like, "Hey, it's actually a good indicator that you carry yourself with standards and expectations. It's like you're not dating someone, because they're the closest meat stick, right? You're dating someone because you have a genuine connection with that person. And so if you carry that on to friendships as well, this is my second dial in quote. Are your relationships built on convenience or on purpose?
Mhm.
Are you friends because they're near you, or is there actual substance to it?
Yeah.
And I think you could apply that mantra of, are your relationships built on convenience or on purpose, to any one of the relationships that we've talked about today. I don't know who said that quote. It might have been me. I can't remember. It's not cited in my
It's a
quotes
good
list.
Dad One quote.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.